Elsewhere, the federal government has commenced plans to repatriate more than 1,000 of its citizens from South Africa as concerns grow over rising anti-immigrant sentiments and renewed xenophobic tensions in the southern African nation. Nigeria's Ministry of Foreign Affairs today confirmed that screening for a voluntary repatriation program began on Thursday, with authorities expecting more than 1,000 Nigerians to participate. Well, that is in our big story breakdown for today, showing you what the journey has been like and how we got to where we are today. Indeed, so much has happened, and this is not the first time that Nigeria would have to actually repatriate its citizens from South Africa. All right, of course, today now screening began in Pretoria in South Africa, and we're expecting flights to follow. And talking about this mission home amid rising anti-immigrant tensions in South Africa, well, this has become imperative due to safety crisis, a diplomatic test, and it's a domestic reintegration challenge all at once. Those are all of the reasons. Now, when the calls for repatriation began, voluntary repatriation, about 130 people had registered. But within 5 weeks, that number of Nigerians who have registered to return to the country has now increased to 1,094. That's about a 742% surge. And all of this is driven by fear among the people. Now, one major issue in South Africa that's believed to cause resentment, powering xenophobia over the years, is the fact that South Africa unemployment rate stands currently at about 32.7%. That's massive. And, well, I mentioned earlier that this is not the first time that Nigerian citizens would be repatriated from South Africa. This same thing happened in 2019. And back then, about 500 plus Nigerians came back to Nigeria. It's the very same pattern repeating itself 7 years later. Now, why has voluntary repatriation been activated this year? These are the triggers we talk about. On the 5th of June this year, Nigeria launched the voluntary repatriation of more than 1,000 nationals from South Africa. And this is driven by renewed xenophobic violence, as I mentioned earlier, protests by the March and March group, and demands for expulsion by June 30. That's the deadline that's been set by the South Africans. Now, the immediate response, we're having joint screening commencing today, June 5th, in Pretoria, and it's involving Nigerian and SC officials who have immigration and police personnel as well. And this is actually a diplomatic win because Nigeria has now successfully negotiated waivers for immigration offenders, bypassing detention and ensuring immediate departure for its citizens. Now, this is the underlying warning. The assessment was this is a recurring diplomatic rupture that is rooted in SA's economic pressures and targeted scapegoating. And, flights are imminent. The final repatriation count is expected to exceed 1,000 citizens. All right, yet another one. Now, this is a pattern of violence. It is not a new crisis. And South Africa has actually seen major waves of xenophobic violence since 2008. Look at the figure there. In 2008, more than 60 people were killed in nationally coordinated attacks. Just about 7 years later, in 2015, 7 people were killed in Durban, Johannesburg, and Nigerian shops were actually looted. You need to have seen some of the videos from those incidents. In 2019, 4 years later, 12 people, more than 12 people actually were killed in Johannesburg and in Pretoria. Now, 500 plus Nigerians were evacuated that year. Between 2021 and 2023, there was low-intensity harassment, not as much as we witnessed in these other years we've spoken about. And now back to 2026. This very year, 1,000 plus Nigerians have already registered and are now to leave by the June 30 deadline, because if do not leave, nobody knows what could happen just next. It's important to note that each wave has triggered diplomatic summits, envoy summons, condemnations, and of course, temporary boycotts. And each wave usually ends, but structural conditions remain unchanged. A third generation of the same crisis is now underway in 2026. Now, South Africa, let's talk about some of the underlying tensions there. we have economic failure, scapegoating migrants. It's a story that's actually older than 2026. As I mentioned earlier, the unemployment rate in South Africa as at today is 32.7%, and that's the highest figure in G20, and it fuels migrant scapegoating. Also, you have foreign-born population, people who live, their own countries and just head to South Africa to give birth. 3 million plus people have been, born there, and that's minus 5.1% of the total 63.6% from SADC states. That's one of the underlying tensions. And now a deadline has been set, 30th of June, last in the month of June. Foreign nationals are expected to be expelled, and this call is coming from anti-immigrant groups who are demanding undocumented expulsion. Now, one of those groups is the March and March. They are demanding expulsion of undocumented migrants by the 30th of this year. The South African government is actually caught between the rule of law obligations, diplomatic pressure from neighboring states, and a domestic electorate that actually blames migrants for structural failures which are rooted in apartheid era inequality that no migrant created. Now, how do we strengthen Pan-African solidarity? The path forward actually requires mutual accountability and not perpetual crisis management. South Africa cannot achieve domestic stability by violently expelling the skilled African labor it relies upon. And also, Nigeria cannot protect its citizens indefinitely if it fails to build an economy that keeps them safely at home. Mutual prosperity requires both nations to abandon scapegoating in favor of structural reform. So this does not have to do with only South Africa or with Nigeria. It is a collective will. Nigeria build structures at home. South Africa look for a way to clear off xenophobia. Well, that's it on the big story break now. We'll take a moment and TVC News at 10 returns. Stay with us.